Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're situated on this great, big, beautiful blue globe floating through the void of Yah's creation. It is Wednesday, hump day, don't you crump and be a chump day, the 3rd of June, 2026. Yes, more subterfuge, gaslighting, propagandizing, and lies coming from the mainstream media, and that's just what they do, and as a result... You won't be trusted anymore. All right, welcome to the Wednesday edition of the WTF Reports. I'm your host, Dave vonKleist. WTF with the facts. And if those facts make you exclaim WTF, having a totally different meaning, well, then so be it. It's about time the top of our heads blow off when we start to realize exactly how we have been manipulated, lied to. It just goes on and on. And yes, there are people noticing all over the world. Yes, this is this broadcast here is sort of like a red pill 101. No, we're not going to go do any deep diving. I mean, there's plenty of deep diving researchers all over the internet. But this is to bring you, the sort of like headlines and just some basic concepts so that you can start putting the puzzle pieces together, and eventually you will be able to start to make out the face of the beast. And I've said it many times before, it doesn't make any difference what you believe. It doesn't make any difference what I believe. What makes a difference is what, quote unquote, they believe. And we have to start to understand what they believe and how they think before we can start to understand why this world is so messed up. Anyway, and I preface this by saying, hey, look, guys, I'm nothing special. I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else. I started tumbling down the rabbit hole over 30 years ago, not because, I wanted to, but it's because when I started to see the lies, my philosophy is if you become aware of a lie and you do nothing to expose that lie, you become part of that lie. And I started seeing this stuff years and years ago. As a matter of fact, what I just said, that's on the liner notes of my first album. And I stand by that. There can be a million lies, but there's only one truth. And a lie needs another lie for support. But the truth will always stand alone. So with that in mind, I want to start off by quoting our first document of law. Okay? This is from, you've heard it before, this is from the Declaration of Independence, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. And I go to the second paragraph. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I back up and I will restate. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Let's just stop right there. Now, if you have a problem with that, well, then you've got a problem with our first document of law. But I happen to agree that all men are created equal. Now, with that, I now hold in my hand a headline from the Times of Israel. Okay, I'm reading the headline. It says here, and I read, to dislike certain ethnicities is racist. To see Jews as equal is anti-Semitic. What? Okay, well this is the mentality that we're dealing with. Again, this is from the Times of Israel. It says here, understand the speciality of anti-Semitism. And the only reason I'm doing this is because the mainstream and the government and all of these institutions are all screaming about how there's too much anti-Semitism going on. Everybody hates the Jews, okay? But it's got nothing to do with your religion. Again, all men are created equal. However, in this Times of Israel article, they have a different philosophy. Listen to what this says. Here it is. Jews are the only people based on an assignment, and their divinely ordained task is to be exemplary to all of humanity, to be God's ambassadors on earth, fighting for the good of everyone. That means that when one says that Jews are just like everyone else, you're a bigot. What? I thought all men are created equal, but not according to them. Again, it says that means that when one says that Jews are just like everyone else, you're a bigot. You don't need to look down on Jews to be anti-Semitic. What? Goes on to say, and the idea that Jews should be no different than Gentiles already implies opposing Jews. And if Jews should adjust to minority norms, integrate, and assimilate away. So they are going on the concept here that Jews are not equal. They are more equal. This is sort of like George Orwell's Animal Farm. Some animals are more equal than others, right? So if you don't agree with that, then you're a bigot. You're an anti-Semite. If you don't understand that the Jews are better than you, then you're an anti-Semite. Okay, I wanted to get that out of the way. Now, right off the bat here, I got a couple of notes and I got a couple of things I want to get to. And one of them will be the NDAA. And I know I mentioned it for the past couple of days, but I actually went on the government website and I printed out Section 224, and I'll get into that in detail. All right? But before I do, I want to have a complete understanding of what this philosophy of Jews being better than everyone else. All right? Let's see here. I've got a couple of things. Let me see. Where did I put that? I got so many tabs open on my computer here. This is just amazing stuff. Let me see. Well, first off, Mike Huckabee was at a commencement speech, and I found it very interesting what he had to say. Anyway, here is Mike Huckabee, and this was, let me see where this, at the Yeshiva University. He says he's a Zionist because that's what the Bible commands him to be. Listen up.
I want you to know I'm not a Zionist because I'm Jewish. I'm a Zionist, and an unapologetic one, because I believe the Bible.
Okay, let me stop right there. Zionism, I mean, the word Zion is in the Bible. But Zionism itself didn't come about until 1896, thanks to Theodore Herzl. Do some research. The concept of Zionism is only about 150 years old. Yeah, well, let me see. Yeah, a little more than that. 1896, 1996, it's 100 years. All right, 130 years old. So Zionism didn't exist until 1896. So where does he get this idea about Zionism? Okay.
And because I recognize that Jews around the world, representing only 0.2% of the world's population.
Stop right there. 0.2% of the world's population. Interesting. They are in an extreme minority. So how did they get into an extreme majority in our government, in our manufacturing, in all the institutions, our media, Hollywood, pharmaceuticals, agriculture, you name it? They have indeed positioned themselves to be basically in positions of power. And they will dictate to everybody else according to their beliefs. Not yours, not our founding fathers. All men are created equal. Not according to them. Let's listen some more from Mike Huckabee.
Have created outsized impact on the world. And unfortunately, there are people who hate you for that. But I've determined that they really, more than they hate you, they hate the God who chose you 3,800 years ago as his people and gave you a place called Israel and gave you a purpose which was to present the law and the light to all the world. You being faithful to that task is not simply something that you should do. It is something that you must do. For there's no one else to whom the creator of the universe has given such a mission.
Boy, so they really are above everybody else. And by the way, he did allude once again to the issue where, and I've got him 3 times. I should have pulled those up. I've got not 1, not 2, but 3 instances where Mike Huckabee is misquoting the words of God. I will bless those who bless Israel and curse those who curse Israel. He said that over and over again, but that's not what the Bible says. God was talking to Abraham, and he said, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. Abraham did not say Israel. But then again, that's what liars do. And unfortunately, liars, deceivers. And what's that motto from the Mossad and the IDF? By means of deception, thou shalt do war. Yeah, deception, lying, which is an affront to the commandment that was given to God's chosen people. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Okay, so let's move on. There's a word that I think a lot of people need to do some research on. The word is Edom, E-D-O-M. What is Edom? Edom, according to Israelis, according to the Talmudic Israelis, is Rome, okay? Now, they've never forgiven Rome or Romans for their defeat all those years ago. Now, Rome, of course, broke up and it ended up in Europe and moved over here to North America. And the bottom line here is, as far as they're concerned, they have to destroy Edom. Let that sink in. This is their belief. This is the way they think. This is not what I say or, what... This is not anti-Semitism. This is what they say. As a matter of fact, I have a clip here from Rabbi, what's his